Hello, and welcome to the first, the one, and the only episode ever made of this super limited edition audio podcast known as GreekCast, the only podcast worth of the Olympian gods themselves. Today's episode is titled A Tale of Warfare. This episode, we will be looking deeply into the characteristics and overall character and demeanor of Ares and Athena, two gods and goddesses of war and its attributes, and then comparing their influence on Greek society in regards to their ideologies in warfare and on the battlefield, etc. First and foremost, we have Ares. Now, Ares is representative of the more wild, unrestricted, and inevitably more violent aspects of war. You know, when you think of Ares, you want to think of more like almost like unwarranted aggression, where violence and war and just defeating your opponent by whatever means possible is the only thing on his mind. Now, Ares is the son of Zeus and Hera, which, side note, is rather surprising considering Zeus has a strong tendency to have kids with basically anyone else besides his wife. So it's good to see he was getting himself back on track somewhat by having a kid with his wife. Now, Ares has 3 kids with Aphrodite, known as Dymas, also known as Terror, Phobos, also known as Fear. You know, it's almost like a play on words there, because phobia. And the third kid being Harmonia, which is harmony, sort of like the odd one out, considering the two have a negative connotation. And the first of his 2 kids accompany him onto the battlefield. Now, this sole fact in itself should begin to paint a dark picture of Ares' reputation. It turns out that he honestly was not well liked by neither the mortals or the gods on Olympus. He was seen as the one who represented all the negative qualities in war. This constant negative portrayal is most vividly demonstrated in various myths. Now, before we go on to the myths and comparing and contrasting the way Ares is portrayed in them and Athena is portrayed in them, we have yet to talk about Athena. Now, Athena is the arguably better counterpart to Ares, both in character and approach to battle. She is the daughter of Zeus, born without a mother, as she sprang from Zeus's head, fully clothed, in armor, ready to go to war. And all the gods have a much more positive attitude towards her than they do towards Ares. Ares is not really well liked, whereas Athena is more venerated both by mortals and immortals alike. Now, Athena is a lot more portrayed in various different myths and usually comes out as the champion. For example, in the contest for Athens, she won over Athens by gifting an olive tree as opposed to Poseidon's salt water, because like, what are you gonna do with salt water in a city, right? There's also the myth of her and Arachne, who she turns into a spider for contesting her skill in weaving and all that. And basically, they're just, those myths are mainly used to demonstrate her intelligence, sort of saying like, oh, I will not be played, I will not be outsmarted, which is also demonstrated in her warfare attributes, which is strategy, wisdom, alongside all of that. And basically, Athena is just better, smarter, more careful, calculated, and definitely a lot more intelligent than Ares is, which is demonstrated in battle. There's a very interesting fact I want to add on to here. There's a palladium, which is a wooden statue that represents her, that the Trojans used for protection, And I think we'll use that to start getting into the myths. See, the fact that they used that for protection and they didn't use a symbol representative of Ares is a clear, most evident demonstration that Athena is far above Ares, and intelligence and cunning and strategic play will always come out victorious over full-on aggression, relentless aggression that Ares always brought to the war. Now, let's talk about the Iliad. Ares in the Iliad does not go without recognition as being tall, handsome, a very, very skilled warrior in comparison to the rest of his, the rest of the soldiers, you know. However, his poor character is revealed as the story goes on because he initially starts the Trojan War off fighting with Athena, Hera, and Poseidon. And then halfway through, he basically switches sides, which is a very dishonorable move on his part. And that's where the tides turn almost. You know, you have, now we're going to see Athena being placed in a much like higher regard than Ares is. Now, when he switched sides, before he did that, he was basically not fighting, and now that he switched sides, he was a lot more into the fighting. However, Athena remained on her side and ultimately ended up defeating Ares. And this could be taken as the clear triumph of strategy and intelligence over simply brute force. Now, let's go a lot more in depth about Athena, and that will help us create a clear divide between the characters of Ares and her. So, from the very beginning, Athena is on the Achaean side. She does not switch, unlike Ares. And throughout the whole Iliad, she is portrayed as a very intense warrior and very watchful, very smart, you know, someone that cannot be crossed. Now, aside from being vividly described as intense, this intensity is more so described in her clothing that she herself is said to have made for herself for battle. There's a quote in the Iliad by Homer that says, Athena flung her richly embroidered vesture made with her own hands, donned the shirt of Jove, arming herself for battle. She threw her tasseled aegis about her shoulders. On her head, she set her helmet of gold with 4 plumes, and coming to a peak, both in front and behind, decked with the emblems of 100 cities. Now, the intense description of her outfit describes her intensity as a warrior and as a goddess herself. But now, let's look at a quote from the Iliad talking about Ares, right? So I have one here saying, the numerous struggles of Trojans, breakers of horse, and bronze-armored Achaeans, struggles that they endured for her, Helene's sake, at the hands of Ares. This, in one sense, is saying success through war in numbers. As we see here, the numerous struggles of Trojans, you know, implying the vast amount of Trojan soldiers sent to war, you know. So on the one hand, we have Ares, you know, he's not really liked by mortals or immortals alike, and therefore he does not have like rituals or like temples because of that. You know, he's not really liked. He was an amazing warrior, of course, but he was really only essential in raw fighting, you know. His character was weak as he switched sides during the Trojan War, you know, and is basically flawed in multiple aspects. Whereas Athena, on the other hand, you know, she's liked by everyone, first off and foremost. She does more than just help out in the war, you know. And aside from clearly defeating Ares, she is known as a protector of the city and was honored extensively by Greek society, demonstrating that she is more important, in a sense, than Ares because of her honorable character and her deeds in the war. Thank you. And don't forget to like and comment. Let me know if you would like a second episode. It's been a great year, Dr. Rob, and I can't wait to hopefully take one of your classes again.